As he does every week for This Week in Cannabis News. David is with the OZ, and you can follow him on Twitter at Wylie Writer as well as at Okanagan Z. David, welcome back to the show. How are things this week out in God's country, as they say?
Hello, everyone. Things are good, just enjoying the changing weather and trying to get outside when the sun decides to shine on us.
Yeah, we've been getting some beautiful sunshine. We had a terrible, terrible April. There was so much snow and cold, and it's gone now, and it seems like a faded memory as we were able to enjoy the outdoors. This first story we're going to chat about, I know there's some people that are happy about this, but just from the very beginning, this company, Aleafia Health Changes, has had a lot of questions about it, and now the top two dogs, I guess you might say, have stepped down.
They most certainly have, and both of those two dogs are very familiar to people in the cannabis industry, notorious even. One of them is a former Toronto police chief and politician, Julian Fantino, and he once compared legalizing weed to legalizing murder. Fantino went on in 2017 after this, after his police and political career, to open what is Aleafia these days. Him, along with his partner, also a former RCMP Deputy Commissioner Raf Sukar, and they have now announced that they're going to be both stepping down as of May 15th. So to many who have been following this since this company really got off the ground, it really was the height of hypocrisy. I mean, you've got two people who for years had fought to put people in jail over cannabis and, even small crimes that involved it. And you've got these guys opening up their own company, and meanwhile you have people within the cannabis industry who fought for years and years to normalize it and legalize it, and they were shut out. So there were a lot of questions about this company at the beginning and how that could be justifiable. And, in fact, in a 27 interview with As It Happened, host Carol Off, she didn't hold back on her questioning. She said, as chief of police in Toronto, you were very strict about drugs. You put people in jail. There are people who are in jail because of people like you. You don't see the contradiction between your past life as chief of police. In this interview, Fantino replied, not at all. He said that we're making a huge mistake if we believe that he put everyone in jail. But he says he gave all kinds of people breaks. Really, for a lot of folks, that doesn't matter. It's just a really hard pill to swallow. And now him and his partner are both leaving the company. And a lot of people out there are very happy about this announcement. There's some speculation as to where Fantino's going to go next. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't care as long as it's not back in the cannabis industry. And if he is back in the cannabis industry, whatever company decides that they want to bring him on their board or wherever they bring him on, I'll be the first to say that I will not be buying from them.
Yeah, this is, if it's interesting when searching around about this story, I came across Vice.com. They have a list of who they perceive to be hypocrites in cannabis in Canada. And Fantino and his, I guess his sidekick or whatever, Raf Sukar, I think I pronounced that properly, they're at the top of the list. Like these two guys who were both involved in law enforcement before and responsible, as you mentioned, for people going to jail. They're at the top of that list when it comes to hypocrisy in cannabis in Canada. I don't know what company would bring these two guys on. It's almost like they're red flagged within the cannabis community.
Yeah, I'm not the first person or the only person to express their disgust of bringing on people who really have made their previous career, putting people who support cannabis in jail. So no thanks.
All right, let's move on to for some people that is a good story that those guys are out of it. Let's move on to an even better
True.
story, if that's the case. And I had a gentleman, Hattie Feltham from Square Foot Grow Systems, on last week, and one of the things we talked about was getting the legacy market, or whatever you want to call it, involved in the growing process. And this next story I'm not sure if fits exactly that, but it's craft cannabis and 7 acres. I'm really excited about this, but also because maybe this is the trickle down of getting those people involved. There's a lot of really smart growers out there that can get involved in craft or micro growing, whatever you want to call it. And I love that 7 acres is really starting to kind of get the ball rolling on this.
Yeah, they sure are. Long before legalization, BC's been known for its bud. And I'm excited to see what the craft side of the biz has to offer, because 7 acres with their new crafts collective is going to be launching in the BC market with a pink kush. So they're focused on bringing that craft product, a small batch, the stuff that really has its own individual kind of mark to it, to the market. And 7 Acres itself has a really strong reputation for being a great grower and in making sure that great products are coming on through them. And I think that my favorite strains always include stuff from that company. And there's not a lot of companies who could pull off trying to bring to life a craft market, because there are some that maybe don't produce the greatest products. So we may have a little laugh if they decided to come out and say that they're gonna really bring out that small batch stuff. And for 7 Acres, they said that this is an opportunity that they've identified, that these smaller and craft producers can quickly bring cultivars that we really want to see to the market. It's a bit of a faster process when you're growing small amounts, and rather than growing massive greenhouses. There's a greater variety of products. So this is great. It's going to be launching across the country in different markets, and keep an eye out wherever you are for whatever is coming. And again, this isn't just a 7 Acres thing. This is the start of a trend that we're going to be seeing, where craft growers are able to bring their expertise in all kinds of different ways. So, hurrah! I'm excited to see what's coming.
I totally agree with you. 7 Acres is one of those producers that I love their slogan. It's right over my, I guess it would be this shoulder in my studio. Respect the plant. It's their motto. They respect the plant. Mm-hmm. It's quantity over quality, and that's what every cannabis connoisseur and newcomers to cannabis should want. Is I'm not saying there isn't a place for the mass producer that's maybe at a lower price, but craft cannabis, hand trimmed, all that beautiful stuff that people can do with time is I think where a lot of the market is going to go. I mean, the craft beer market is really starting to take off, and I think craft cannabis could be the same.
Yeah, it really could. And I'm hoping that also we're going to start to see those punny names that we tend to see in the craft beer market.
Yeah, that's a good point. That'd be a nice side benefit to that as well. David, we know that the cannabis industry was in a little bit of a downturn before COVID-19, and now the impact of COVID-19 is affecting the long-term approach when it comes to forecast and sales, and when it comes to one bank in particular, some of those forecasts have been slashed.
They sure have. It's been clear for about 4 months now that 2020 was going to be miserable. It turns out that CIBC Capital Markets also seeing that glass half empty. And it's the investment banking subsidiary to Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, for anyone who's wondering. And, Now, they've slashed their cannabis sales forecast for 2020 by $1 billion, so down from 2.5 billion to 3.4 billion, and that's 2020. 2021 also slashed from 4.1 billion, down to 4.1 billion from 5.5 billion. So these are big changes, and they still seem optimistic when you compare them to last year's sales, which was 1.2 billion. So the forecast is actually still projected to more than double last year. Maybe that's a silver lining. And this number also should say it doesn't include medical sales.
Mm-hmm.
So in this report, it was kind of interesting to read them giving a slap on the wrist to cannabis companies over what they call their lack of readiness for 2.0 categories, including edibles, extracts, topicals. So basically, they said, CIBC said that we had a cannabis company saying they were ready, that they were going to bring some great products to the market, and then 2.0 kicked in, and there was nothing. So in a lot of markets, it still seems like maybe some of these products, especially supplies and varieties, are lacking. That did not escape CIBC's notice. And one of a few things they said that are actually positive from the COVID-19 crisis, and it's always nice to get at least a little bit of good news mixed in with the bad. They said that this has brought on forced innovation and are expecting to see 2 years worth of innovations in only 2 months, citing things like a curbside pickup, direct delivery from stores, digital ordering, and text message notifications. So there's, a lot to be said about how a market and industry can change in a crisis.
Well, most definitely, we are seeing some reaction to that, and it's good to see that some of those things have been implemented rather. The one thing I found interesting about this, and the forecast coming down. Because a lot of these shops have had to stop their rollouts, and there's a lot of places. You look in Alberta, there's almost 450 stores here in Alberta. There would be more if the rollout the COVID hadn't stopped the rollout. I think you guys in BC, it says, have just over 180, but Ontario, there were supposed to be a whole bunch of stores opening in the last little while that haven't been able to do it because of the situation we're in, and that's one thing that they're looking at as being a big impact for this forecast being slashed.
It's a big problem when you have a product and nowhere to sell it. Not everybody wants to buy online. In fact, I think online is only about 10% of actual purchases. So 90% of product is being bought in brick and mortar. And if you don't have stores open, well, where are you going to go?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why I think delivery is so important, especially for the next story. And the final story that we're going to talk about, as we're joined by David Wylie from the OZ. You can follow him on Twitter at Wylie Writer and at Okanagan Z. And seniors are getting high at a large rate. And I've been banging this drum for a while that this is a fast-growing demographic. This is why I think we should have delivery, especially at this time, because seniors are vulnerable, the most vulnerable right now to going outdoors. So, I think maybe it's coming, but I know that senior market, from talking to people in stores, is just exploding right now.
It sure is, and it has really been trending upward since legalization. I remember the conversations and how different they are back when I was a teenager about cannabis, which usually centered around me being sent to my room, banished to play video games, versus now my conversations with my parents, my mom in particular, has been asking me all kinds of different questions about CBD and THC and the different teas and chocolates on the market. So I've been sending my mom, by the way, here's a good PSA that Mother's Day is coming up.
Yes.
All my friends out there. And I've been sending my mom things like teas and chocolates to help her get familiar with the cannabis products that are out there. And it's amazing how many more people in the 65 and over demographic have tried cannabis since it's legalized. I'll hit you with some numbers. Statistics Canada shows that that of people who are 65 and over, it's going upward and hovering now somewhere between 4% and 7.5% of people. So if you do a little bit of math, since legalization, we've probably seen an increase of about 200,000 grandmas and grandpas out there across Canada who are trying cannabis or using cannabis and didn't before. That's a lot of people. Maybe your mom and dad, our grandma, grandpa are out there trying it. You don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty fascinating. A lot of these older folks are even new to it completely. Yeah, you have a bunch of people, of course, out there who have used and loved and known cannabis for a long, long time. And there are others who this is just brand new to them because it is a legal market now. And the stigmas that we've been talking about since we first started talking, Dean, are starting to shift and starting to lift. And people are more interested and want to give it a shot. So it's a great trend, and it's offering a lot of people some relief for the pain that they've been suffering and the sleeplessness that they're suffering because of that kind of pain that increases and stays with you as you get older and older.
It's such a great, fascinating, excitable trend. And in some cases, you're right. Your grandparents may be using this and you don't know it because maybe they don't want to tell their friends or whatever it is, that they have a secret stash of cookies or something like that. But it's also great that, seniors complexes are having educators come in and talk to them about cannabis because they're requesting it, or they're going to the stores themselves in groups or individuals. I mean, oftentimes I'll walk into a cannabis store and there'll be somebody in their 70s in there asking questions. And I just get so excited about it because, I know it can help. I know what it can do. I know what it's done for me, and I know what it can do for other people, whether on the medicinal side or just for pure enjoyment. So this is one of the happier stories that I love discussing. And the fact that we're seeing that generation ask for the information is even better.
It's a beautiful thing. A lot of retailers that I've spoken to specifically are looking to hire people who are 65 or older so that when these customers are coming in, they have someone that's familiar to speak to them and maybe has some of the same questions that they do.
That's such a really, really good point. David, thanks as always for joining us here on This Week in Cannabis News. You can sign up or join the newsletter at okanaganz.com. Check out the website, okanaganz.com/OZ, and make sure you're giving them a follow on Twitter at okanaganz, at Wylie Writer. Enjoy the sunshine, David. Can't wait to chat next week and find out what else is going on in the world of cannabis news.
You too, my friend.